Welcome to the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We're here for an episode of the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast, and today we are here with Bhai Kuljit Singh, who I've known since a child, and he's been an inspiration for Seva that I have been doing. If it wasn't for Bhai Kuljit Singh, I wouldn't have met certain people in my life who have helped me through the thick and thin as well. And because of that reason, we think it's perfect for you to be on this podcast of, Flawed is over here, Foolish is over here, and we need somebody fantastic, and you are here. And I know there's so many pearls, that you can add from your life story that would help inspire others. And I think it's good to just have somebody to go, well, hang on, there's this good Sikh who came from Leicester, grew up supporting the worst team in the world, to end up doing the Seva that he does today. So
pretty good now.
Yeah, they're good for a couple of years. They'll end up going down. Blackburn will be the best. We'll talk about that at some point. But that's what I want. For me, it's just that I just remember the humble backgrounds, what you're doing, and how you started. And it's not just that. It's the the inspiration of college education, the way you've raised your kids, and I just want to touch upon some of those things. So if you'll be happy to go, I'm just trying to, like I said, I'm going to go through just a couple of questions, and the conversation is as open as you want it to be. And straight away, just for the people who are listening to this, can you explain who you are?
So, my name is Kuljit Singh. First of all, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki
Fateh. My name is Kuljit Singh. Born and bred in Leicester, UK. For the first kind of like 3.5 decades, or nearly 4 decades of my life, was based in Leicester. Now I find myself living in India. I'm a trustee of an international charity, and the chair of it as well. And I also, which is Mata Sahib Kaur Educational Trust. Short form is Musket.
Yeah.
I'm also very fortunate that Guru Sahib has blessed me with the ability to be a grassroots pracharak in India. So that's part of the seva that we do over in India. Travel from village to village, doing kids camps, Sikhi camps, and trying to encourage Najwan into Sikhi, and in the area of Malwa. So Malwa area, as people probably know, is there's 2 parts of it as such.
It's the best area.
Yeah, there's one area where it's Sikhi is amazing, like Jagadhaon, Ludhiana side, Nansar kind of side. And there's one area which is quite, how I say, barren, and kind of like almost like a red land they call it, where obviously it's like almost desert land. So that's the kind of area that we're on the cusp of, towards the border of Pakistan and kind of southwest India, southwest Punjab, sorry. So it's a fascinating life so far. I'm sure Maharaj has got more surprises ahead.
That's really good. I'm going to pick up on certain bits of that later on, if that's okay with you. I know you've touched upon your background in Leicester, but what's your family setup like as growing up, and now obviously I know you got 3 kids and singing with you all the time.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit more about your family life and childhood.
So my father's name is Kuljit Singh, who is really well known in Leicester. Really well known in the sense that he educated a lot of young people into learning about Sikhi. Although he was employed on the side as a volunteer with Sikh Parents Association in the early 80s, or just after 1984 occurred, there was kind of like a transformation in a lot of people's mindsets in the UK. But Dad's kind of push was more towards what we're doing for younger people, what we're doing for our children as such. So there was an organisation at that time called Sikh Parents Association. People like Ruprai Uncle Ji, Pritam Singh Pamara, they all got together, and they were like kind of governors in schools and so forth already. So they were quite ahead of their time as such, and kind of like set a good precedent for us to follow on. So they were liaising with their schools for their own children, but they'd created this Sikh Parents Association, and they invited Dad to become a Punjabi school teacher. I actually remember the day when a few of them came to the house to invite Dad, and my dad was like really happy that somebody in the community had picked up on him.
Yeah.
I think the reason why they asked Dad was because Dad was involved in reciting shabds at in those days, some gurdwara, what we call chakme, like where there'd only be at certain houses or properties or halls, community halls and so forth. So Dad used to do shabds, like he'd on the Babaji he'd recite kirtan now and then, and because of that kind of face, like people might have seen him or recognized him, and just thought they'd approach him to teach Punjabi. And so, which is odd because when I was speaking to my dad last night about this, funnily enough, and just asking about our grandparents and great grandparents and so forth, because they have obviously memories and so forth of which are probably not written down anywhere. And he mentioned that my grandfather was actually a primary school teacher as well, at some point, amongst other roles at Sarpanch and being a Nambardar and so forth, a village. He passed on at a very young age, but he remembers his dad going to different villages in India and being a primary school teacher. So I thought that was quite fitting, that Dad would have been asked to teach as well. And education for us has always been there. It's kind of like and I did well at school. I studied at Spinney Hill School first, primary, and then from there. Terrible school.
But you did well to get out.
It was for us. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
it was a good laugh. It was just around the corner. I remember literally just going home, having roti and coming back on.
Exactly.
It was cool. So it was almost like going to like your cousin's house. I felt like everyone. You knew everyone in school at that time because everyone lived in the same area. Everyone.
You didn't have computers and stuff, did you? You were playing out in the streets.
That's it. It was just a nice time to be safe. It was like a safe and nice time to be.
Yeah.
So from Spinney Hill went to Crown Hills.
Yeah.
Did my GCSEs there. Luckily Maharaj did really well GCSEs. Dad was a governor there, which helped a lot.
Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know you done.
Yeah. So it was quite nice actually, because any assemblies that would happen in the evenings and so forth, Dad was invited to all of them, and obviously if we were taking part, he'd be sitting there. So it was quite a nice time to be in school as well, and that helped because obviously when the principal's walking around, so
exactly.
Mr. Badwell's son, so I was recognised for that. And it felt you got kind of sense of esteem. I mean, recognised by your teachers. A lot of children go through school and not, teachers don't recognise them. Nowadays probably it's a different situation, but in those days it was very much survival. So from Crown Hills, went to study A-levels at QE, and amongst this kind of period of time, Dad was a big part of our life in terms of the teaching of Gurmat. So there's myself, who's the youngest in our family. I've got an older brother, Kuljit Singh, and he is actually living in America, in Chicago now. He has a family of his own there, and my elder sister Amrit, who lives in Leicester. She's got 3 daughters as well. So I was the youngest of the family. I wouldn't say I was spoiled, but I think we saw a different side of Dad, because Dad was known as a quite strict teacher in Punjabi, and I remember there's been some kind of traumatizing times, like for students and people. And sometimes I see those individuals, I think, wonder what they're thinking now. Like in this day and age, it's probably a massive safeguarding issue. In
this day and age, you also have PVP, social services, right?
But I remember in our community,
but that's how we worked.
Our parents would say, "Jay, thodi nahi gal sunde la deo."
Exactly.
That's how the mentality was.
Yeah.
So Dad got encouraged by.
Not just
I wouldn't say he was encouraged by that.
Because if your dad didn't deal with it, I remember those days when your dad would go to our parents, going, "Today they didn't listen." Katapa was outside by our own parents anyway, so you got it one way or the other. It was fine.
So yeah, I think, and that was amazing though, because Dad taught us a lot in terms of Punjabi, but his main focus was because he was transforming in Sikhi. He used to always say, "Thar GCSE kam kuch nahi honi." He used to say, "GCSE Punjabi kuch nahi kam honi, par ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦਾ ਗਿਆਨ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ GCSE ਆ." He goes, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਰੱਖੋ. He goes, you talk about Punjabi, learn Punjabi, read it, but ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰੋ. And that for me was, why is he so ardent and Sikhi? Like, I couldn't understand it at the time, because we were kind of in a way cotton wool from everyone else at that time. Like you kept safe by parents and stuff,
of course,
but you were given every guidance for everyone. So he was quite strict, But we saw the other side of Dad. He was actually a softie, biggest softie ever. And like he used to give us so much lard, pyar. So we got khulla prem pyar from Dad as well.
Yeah.
But we also saw this kind of like side of him that was wow. Like even now I come across certain people in our community who are our age and they were like, oh my God, how's Prahlad uncle, you know? And I think I'm worried like, oh, they're gonna say something like, oh, he used to slap me about. But they turn around and say, you know what?
No.
I'm so glad Dad taught us Punjabi like that, because I actually remember it. I still read Punjabi because of that, and they're thankful. And I was like, wow, like the deen of the elderly community is something that we can't forget. And I think Dad, even now to this day, I mean, he's 80 this year, and like he's still smashing out the prachara, Guru Amardas Gurdwara, still teaching people. Now he's on YouTube as well. He's got his own YouTube channel, which is crazy. Like he's, you know, doing Jap Sahib and Japji Sahib Katha on it and stuff. Like he's keeping himself busy, and that's the amazing thing. I feel. Obviously not in the UK at the moment, but he's still keeping on with his seva.
Yeah.
And alongside that, Mum Satnam Kaur, I think sometimes she's like kind of the hidden strength of the family, but Mum is like a machine in terms of seva. Like she, you know, every day, even now, Guru Tegh Bahadur Gurdwara, I remember as a kid, falling asleep listening to Kirtan after Rairas in Guru Tegh Bahadur Gurdwara when it was the old Gurdwara across the road.
Which is the old pool hall or something.
Yeah. I don't know the name of it now, but my earliest memories are Mum taking us to Sangat every day and listening to Kirtan and falling asleep on the floor and then waking up for the prasad. As it was in those days.
That's what it was. That's the thing that got you in, isn't it? You got prasad at the end.
I think Mum's seva aspect was a big thing. Like she's this untucked seva that even to this day, she'll spend hours in the kitchen at Guru Tegh Bahadur Gurdwara doing langar seva. And I think for me as a child, seeing the Gurmat side of it from Dad, and the stories, the prasangs, and the part and stuff from that Sikhya from Dad, but from Mum it was more the kind of just like the kind of overt strength and of just keep going. Like she pushes herself to the ground in terms of seva, and for me that's a big kind of inspiration that was. But as you do in those days, I think when we were being brought up as Gursikhs, in those days it was very difficult to balance the community, the cultural aspect of it. So for example, like, you know, I remember Dad making a conscious decision that apa partiyan putiyan ch nahi jana hai, and like that we're gonna stay away from the drink and culture that there was apparent. I remember being 5 or 6 years old and going to places, you know, where there's like Apna Sangeet playing after a wedding or something, you know, like that, and like, seeing all our community members drinking and stuff. And our uncles doing the Nagini dance and all those kind of things.
But you're like, hang on, we've just been having Gurdwara for 3 hours.
What's
going on? How's this happening?
We just went on longer because you didn't know what was right or wrong then at that time. But then I remember that conscious decision of Dad saying, no, actually, this is enough. We're not going to do that anymore. And I said, okay. And then suddenly we found ourselves doing Rairas together as a family. And although it was a time like you'd get giggles, you'd be looking at each other and we'd be laughing away. But
you and Hard,
Hard, my sister and everyone. But then actually that was the time when you felt a bit of shanti. Now looking back now, you know, I remember even closing my eyes as a 9-year-old, just listening to Rairas from Dad. And even though it was quite a strict environment, but you know, it felt anand, felt like blissful inside. And I was like, what is that? I actually remember a time where sitting in Rairas as a kid and feeling like a sense of kind of like peace and feeling radiant in my mind. And I got scared, and I looked up when Dad was just finishing Rairas, and I looked at Mum, and Mum had her eyes closed, and I was like, what was that like? What was that feeling? You know, it was almost like something had been planted, but I didn't realize that what that seed was until very much later. So one of the things that I remember from childhood, which I remember coming down the stairs, I think it was about 9 or 10 years old, me and my brother Haj were called downstairs, and my sister, all three was made to stand, and Dad had got this kind of corrugated cardboard and got an A4 sheet of paper, Pritt stick to it, and on it said Jaruri Suchana, which is important information in Punjabi, and it had about 15 rules on it, and one of the rules were like, right, you must, in Punjabi it was written that you must do Japji Sahib before you go to school. The other rules were that everyone in your class in school is like a sister, and like it was so kind of like liberating in a way to have that kind of sense of values in the family. It was like what we would say like a family mission statement nowadays, or a family vision or something. And like I remember reading, but the funny thing was Dad goes "Inu can't kanna," so we had to memorize it. I don't remember it now; it's been so long. But like going through some of the photos I see on the wall, sometimes that thing was just hung on the chimney wall in a house. So everyone was reading it. So even our relatives, any friends, families would come there too.
What is this?
There were a set of rules on the wall, but it was an amazing thing, and I thought it was like a really good tactic by Dad, because obviously he inculcated those values of gurmat in us from a young age. And I going through school, I found it difficult in a way. Like I saw what everyone else was doing, and I felt kind of like ashamed if we start talking about girls and stuff like that. But Maharaj Kirpana, like that was due to the modesty and the gurmat aspects that Dad was implanting in us at that time. But it was an amazing thing, Cam, because obviously we met you in one of the schools as well at Spinney Hill.
That's it. That's what I meant.
One of the amazing things was that we, for what I'm doing now, it was like a predecessor, because we used to learn Japji Sahib, Path or Prasangs or whatever we were gonna do on stage at the Gurdwara, but then we'd have football. And we'd run around in the playground afterwards for a good half an hour. And it was amazing because it was a mainstream school, but on a weekend, and
on a Saturday,
on a Saturday, people would be walking past, what's going on? What these kids doing? And they got Kuljit Singh, and we're in the playground playing golf, football, and all sorts. So it was like quite fun, wasn't it? It was like almost. And I remember also Dad would organise these seaside trips out of nowhere, like take us Blackpool on the train. Chalo train to Betty. There's about 15, 16 kids in tow, and we were just having a laugh, going to places. But the amazing thing was, I remember the confidence that I got from doing those stage programs at that age, and in front of all the Sangat listening, they're smiling at you, and you're just like, wow. And you're talking about Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, hame ka jag tumo aaye. I
was about to say that one, and then when we talk about Bikhan Shah, I remember that prasang, we did that on stage, the Vijitra Natak one. I remember doing the Guru Nanak Dev Ji one. I remember the first time. I was learning Punjabi at school as well. And one of the days was you have to write something like Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and you have to write in Punjabi. I was like, this is easy, because your dad had taught us, Guru Gobind Singh Avtar Pursiya, Paul Suri Satvi,
the dates stick with you.
And when I said that, the teacher said, I ain't taught you that. So where have you got that from? Right. But I mean, those things stuck with me. And like you said, it gave us the confidence, because I remember the first time we were on stage at Gurdev while we got there, and you're like, there's only like 10 people left on the stage, and you're still bricking it, because you're like, if I get this wrong. But the confidence it built was massive. The difference with, we went from our parents going, you're going to go there to learn about Punjabi, you have Maharani and everything. Now we already had a base of that. We went to Guru Nanak Sikh College, which is different. But what we didn't have was the Gurmat Sikhya behind it. And your dad implemented all that. So everything that I look at now with regards to the Bikrami dates, the way the chals are done and the shans are done, and because your dad wrote Kavta all the time. And that all comes from there. So I remember those days. And I remember it was a case of, we're here at 10, we finish at 12, got 1.5 hours of, because nobody as a child wants to study on their day off. And you're like, I've got 1.5 hours of this. And having the people around us at the time made that easier. Because you go to the Gurdwara, your family, you go whatever. We used to all go to the Gurdwara, it's like, oh, Kuli's here, oh, Haj is here, oh, somebody else is here, Raj is here, Madhu's here. You had a built friendship through that.
You built friendship, didn't you?
Massive.
And these are people you see on a Sunday, and you were learning at the same time.
Yeah, we were learning at the same time, playing football at the same time.
It was an amazing time, actually, and I remember Dad even taking us to BBC Radio and going on the Asian network, and we were talking about Maharaj and doing a prasang on there, and those kind of
12,
experiences.
13 years old.
For a 12, 13-year-old, it's like obviously the equivalent of doing a podcast or something now, but in those days in national radio, that was a big thing for us, and we didn't really understand the gravity of it until way later on. But it helped me in school as well, because I remember if we were speaking on the stage and you've got rid of that that kind of shyness and that kind of like timid kind of mentality in it, I used to always get the kind of main narrator roles at school in assemblies and stuff because you were good at throwing your voice and so it helped both aspects. And I remember I remember there was a cultural event in Crown Hills, and they'd called, the Sikh Parents Association had done it, and they'd basically called a music band, a Punjabi music band, to sing a few dharmic songs on the stage at Crown Hills, and the community event after, and then we were going to come on after it. And we had like these kind of blue bardiyan with Sassa Papa Era written on it, which is Sikh Parents Association, and Kesri Dastana, and this I think was just possibly before Abji came into the school and stuff. And I remember some of the guy who was performing before us, I don't remember his name, but he seemed to be like a kalakar, a famous kalakar, Punjabi kalakar. And he came up to me, he goes, "Jo tu karde hain, tusi kar rahe hain na." He goes, "Asi thanu namaskar karde hain." That's what he said. I remember as a Punjabi kalakar saying that to me. He goes, "I matha take to what you lot are doing," because he obviously must have left an impression on him, what we were singing about Sikhi and so forth. And that Dad used to, obviously we know he's a writer, but he's got a few books of Sikh history written down. So he used to also write kavatas in the lair or the rhythm of Dadis and Kavishas and stuff like that.
Kavishi Vada, that's what they're more like.
Yeah, so I remember the tunes of Jugni and the Heer and stuff like these, all these kind of folk tunes, but Dad had put like the Sikhi kind of prasangs with it, and singing those in front of everyone, it was a big like wow, like everyone's watching, and I remember shyness wasn't in the book for after a certain while because you got so used to it, and I think that boded well for what was going to happen in the future. Like obviously didn't realise that Maharaj was going to give us Seva, Parchar and stuff in the future, but like I think definitely the foundations and a good sturdy foundation is put down by Dad at that time. I'm very grateful for that. So in terms of our family, Mum and Dad are still at home in Leicester. I'm married to Sarveen Kaur. We got married in 2004. Very lucky very fortunate that she had the same kind of Gurmat values, although her family background is very different from ours. And then we had Harsukh Singh, born in 2005. And he's 16 now, and then Sundar Singh, who's 13, and Jeevan Hardeep Kaur, who in 2010, and all three of them are in Sikhi Srupa. We're trying our best to kind of inculcate
you've done a really good
values
job
in them, but it's difficult. It's not easy.
You've done a really good job. I've seen your youngest doing her Kirtan when you lot came down last time. Part of the Nahal Kirtan group. And then obviously Harsukh and Sundar have always seen them doing, whether it's George Sahib Seva or some Seva or whatever, they keep staying there barna. You lot have done a really good job.
I think
comes
now
to both of you working really, really hard to do that, because I know how difficult that is. I've tried that. None of my kids are involved in Sikhi in any way. Right. They know the basics, they know whatever, and I've tried to implement exactly the same as you have, but it's not done it. So for you lot to manage that in today's society is a massive thing.
I think I'm very grateful that we've got I think Mahapurush are a big part of our life now. Initially at the start, and just to kind of tie up the whole kind of in a nutshell of our upbringing and stuff, Dad one day pulled out a shabd each for each of us to learn. So my brother and my sister were given a shabd each. And the shabds were like, I remember my sister got Darshan Dekh Jiva Gur Tera, brother got Hamari Ganatana Ganiya Gai, and I got Sant Jana Mil Har Jas Gayo. And I think the reason why they gave Sant Jana Mil Har is because I was the youngest and it was only a few lines to remember. And Dad goes, "You have to remember these shabds and snai it to me." So I remember that Sant Jana Mil Har Jas Gayo stuck in my head for so long, and then I didn't realise the meanings of it until way after. But the literal meaning of it is that be in the company of Mahapurush and sing the praises of Vaheguru. And actually, if I think that my dad created a manorath for me, or my aim in my life for me, the purpose, that is my purpose. I'm living it. With the blessings of Vaheguru, I'm living that purpose of Maharaj. Because we as we probably discussed, is like, you know, as we came into Sikhi, the kind of suddenly Mahapurush came into our life, and that changed a lot of things for us in terms of where we were going and what we were doing.
But that's, talk about you, I know you're doing Seva with Mahapurush now, but that's not anything new for you. The first time I met Babaji Singh's dad, I was with you.
Yeah.
Babaji Singh's I was with you.
Yeah.
We went down to, which was, trying to think of his name now, Bindi's dad's house. Jahiru's house. We went to Jahiru's house. You took me there.
Yeah.
So that's not something that's new. That's basically, as soon as you left like university, you've been in association with Maharaj since then.
Yeah.
So
I mean, alongside this, culturally, I think what was happening is, you know, as you come to about the teenage years, you suddenly realise that actually you can start pushing buttons on some of the rules that your parents have taught you, and it's a natural thing. And later on, when I studied psychology and taught it, I realised that actually, you know, there's stages that Kohlberg mentioned about how you push the buttons of morality and so forth, so your own morals and stuff. So we tended to kind of, because I was good at singing, and I was good at kind of like the whole Punjabi aspect. We used to spend copious time listening to Bhangra in the teenage years. And what happened was, and sometimes scared of Dad, because Dad wouldn't allow that thing.
I remember those days.
Yeah, so we'd just have like these kind of headphones, the Walkmans and the Rajanya and stuff that we listened to, and then get caught. The Walkman would go out the window,
exactly,
and the headphones would go somewhere. But I think what happened was, naturally, the inclination was that I want to find peers of my kind of in a similar sangha to me, so youngsters who are the same age as me, and what they're doing. And their focus was more of the cultural aspect and the going out and so forth. And so in around college time, I think my direction kind of went less Sikhi oriented. And Japji Sahib disappeared, like the Bart disappeared, and like the cultural aspect came forward. And I remember even going to join like Bhangra groups in Leicester, you know, like to do Bolia and so forth. Like just to kind of like get the cultural aspect. So that took over in a way. And when that kind of took over, I think I suddenly found myself in a set of group of friends who didn't have anything to do with Sikhi, or they didn't understand Sikhi as such, although they knew little bits of maybe going Gurdwara and stuff. And it was a different sangat from what we were educated with the Aabjis or any of the people who did have knowledge of Sikhi. So I found myself actually going further away from Maharaj and stuff like that in our attributes now, you know, what we got up to as well. Went through college, and after college, then we got to university. So I went to Nottingham Trent University, studied law there. And those university years were obviously away from parents. But it was the time where we just completely took a different direction. And at that time, I think we didn't understand what was going on. But I think Maharaj was also, looking back now, Maharaj is also showing us that actually Avi Dunya Hagiya exists, and these people, there are people in this world who don't understand Gurmat, and maybe there's something that needs to be done there. But I didn't realise that at that time. I thought, Chalapa is khao, piyo, ash karo, mitro type kind of jindagi.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, study even took a back step, to be honest, being really literal. But Maharaj, somehow, I know that as you did in those days, you still came out with a good degree. So I left university with a law degree. And I was like, how did that even happen? Because in attendance, we need Nisigi, and I'm being honest, it was, you know, like Maharaj name, I don't know, they got us through that uni somehow.
Yeah, same as all of us, huh?
Yeah.
You wake up to go on a night time or on a bus somewhere. Yeah, that's all I did at uni, and then like the odd day you went in. So
so it was a complete different environment, but one that I'm grateful for. Maharaj taught us about living independently and, you know, kind of catering for yourself. So I remember working not only as a college student in a petrol station here, and then working in another petrol station in Nottingham, because I knew the managers of the petrol stations after working in Leicester. And then so I used to work on the weekend in Nottingham, not come home, whereas all my friends would go back to Leicester. And some of those friends obviously were friends of yours, like Babaji and Mandeep Singh and a few others, and we all lived in Nottingham together. And like
69 Mansfield.
Yeah, 69 Mansfield Road. You know the address as well.
Everybody knows it, man.
Remember those days? We had a bit of a reputation at that time. With the Leicester guys who used to live together, and so it was good. But I felt kind of almost lonely at times, because like Galasiga, and like you know, I was too afraid to go back home, because obviously Dad wasn't he didn't really like the huliya, what Rupa had gone to. Like, I was trimming my beard and stuff, and fallen away from Sikhi. And like even at that time, when the odd chance we would come home, I'd dread it facing Dad again. But Dad would turn around and say, "Teri degree nahi pyari mainu, teri Sikhi pyari hai."
Yeah.
And he wouldn't say anything else further from that. And that would like, I was like, wow, you know, he must be. At that time I didn't understand it, but when I became into Sikhi, then I realised what he was trying to say and how much pyar he had for Guru Sikhi. That he said, look, tu mera put nahi hai, if you're not gonna keep the principles of Sikhi, you're not my son. I mean, look at, and then I remember having conversations, walking into a room, and Dad would be sitting there, and he'd just turn the other way.
Yeah.
And like and then he'd talk through Mum, so he'd communicate from Mum. It was like that third party kind of treatment.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I got that treatment. I'm so glad that Dad treated me like that, because he made me realise.
It either makes you or breaks you.
Yeah, I realised that actually that was a principle that he was stuck to. And it was when I look back now and think about how Guru Har Rai Sahib Ji Maharaj turned Ram Rai, so it was almost like a feeling, you know, like you need to sort yourself out, you're not on the right path.
Yeah.
But chalo, even at that time I still had that ego in me कि आपा नई गल माननी हैगी. And then when university finished, suddenly I found myself coming back home, and I thought, you know what have I actually learned in my life? And the amazing thing was, crazy thing was that the Sikh societies in university, I used to find myself attending them all the time, and I knew the answers to all the questions. You know, whenever they used to have a quiz or something.
Yeah, the boss ones, or somebody come over.
Yeah, like, or you know, like somebody like Nick would come over and do a talk, and proper Karku type talk in
Yeah,
those days, and everyone would walk out of the room. I remember one university talk. I think there was somebody. I think it was Nirmal Singh, one of the main prachars of Boss. He came and did a talk, and he basically blazed everyone. He was, who do you think you are? You know, it was that kind of mentality at that time.
But it was that, right?
It was very direct.
It was like, where's your self-reflection?
Yeah.
Because they knew whoever was coming into universities was like, all these people are doing bunga at the moment. They're so far away. They turn up to a Sikh society for the Chan Samosa. That is it.
I remember, Cam. You know, we were in the top 8th floor of a building, Newton building in Nottingham-Trent University, and we did the Sikh society talk there. And he came in. The first thing he said something like was, "You lot are jokers," or something like that. And the majority of the people walked out the room. And I remember there was only about 15 of us left there, and then everyone walked out, and he goes, that's the garbage out of the room in a way. That's his words. But then he started talking about Sikhi, and he inspired the hell out of us in that talk. I think he's passed away now. We used to call him Colonel Nirmal Singh. He was one of the main pracharas of kind of the boss lot, and the very first kind of prachar movement of our generation in UK. And he was a very good speaker, and like he was Master Hari Singh's brother, who did roots, martial arts and stuff. So he kind of inspired, I remember, and then when they used to do the quizzes and stuff, we used to answer the questions, because obviously what Dad had taught us, it was coming back, and then I'd answer it almost automatically. Then I'd think to myself, oh, should I stay quiet, because other people are looking at me, you know, like, who's this Gandhi kind of thing. And you know, it wasn't cool to know stuff about Sikhi at that time.
You're judged by your peers at the time, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you don't want that judgment.
But that stayed with me, and I remember going to do Seva at Gurdwara and stuff, and I even remember being in sessions amongst the guys at the time with Mandeep, and we had massive debates about how it's not right to have mass or in Sikhi, you know, and we were mashed our heads.
They still have Patra Gurdwara. Man, there's a Patra Gurdwara. Yeah, that's not the reason you go to the Gurdwara.
So there were so many amazing things, but then I remember saying to them, "You watch one day." That was the key line for me. You know, you watch one day. And they said, "What do you mean you watch one day? What are you talking about?" And I said, "Watch. You know, you say to me that you're a hypocrite for saying all these things about Sikhi, but watch what happened one day." And I remember literally as soon as we finished uni, like came back to Leicester, and it was 1999 when we finished uni. And then that summer, my nana passed away.
I was about to say that.
And that was the
for
start.
me, that was your biggest change. I remember, and I was going to bring that up afterwards if you didn't bring it up, I remember playing football. I remember then seeing you a couple of months later, and it was the first time I'd seen you in a barn offer. You know, I remember seeing you and Haj at Guru Nanak Gurdwara. and the line "Bin Bairag na chhuta sa maya," and until you hit that point in dispassion, it doesn't wake you up. And I remember your nana passing on.
Yeah.
And that's what brought you back in.
he was. I think what happened was, because just after uni we were playing football
at
the park with and I was working. I remember night shifts at Power Gen and at that time, and so I was clearing the debt. And so as soon as I came back, Dad said to me, "Right, you're in charge of the mortgage." I was like, "What?" Like, I just finished uni. I hadn't had a job, and he said, "You're in charge. Padh ke aa gaya, bas hum kaam kar." So from Dad, it was like that kind of mentality. But again, I still wasn't into the Sikhi aspect. But then what happened when Nana passed away? He was, how can I say? He was partially sighted, but he used to be a Guru Tegh Bahadur Gurdwara Deg Seva, Amrit Villa, and he couldn't see anything. And my nanny used to accompany him everywhere. They went together, and whenever he used to sit and talk with him, he'd inspire the living daylights out of you, because he'd tell you Sakhiyan of the Sahibzade. He'd talk about Sakhis of Babaji Singh. You sat with him for about 15-20 minutes, he would get something across to you with your spine tingling in terms of Sikhi. So I used to find him quite inspiring, and he literally told us what was going to happen with him. He said, heart attack 3 ਵਾਰੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੈ, ਤੀਜੇ ਹਾਰਟ ਤੱਕ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਏਦਾਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਰੀਰ ਨਾਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ, ਇੰਨਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੋਗਾ. He told us everything from start to finish, what was actually ਮੇਰੇ ਸਰੀਰ ਨਾਲ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ, ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ. He told us everything. And I was like, what were you talking about? But he was very balwan in his kind of Sikhi kind of inspiration. He used to be, I remember always listening to Dadi, always listening to Asa Diwar in the morning, and he was an inspirational fellow. And then when he passed away, I remember working in a call centre at the Ohigal Hoi, about midday. He said he was on the past day midday-ish. Phone Aya in the call centre said, "It's for you." My brother was also working at the same place. So he picked the phone up and he called me over and he said, "Nana's passed away, we've got to go." And I was like, "What?" They actually said this. They mentioned this. They're going to pass away at this time. And then he'd passed away of a heart attack and left in hospital. And then when we got to the hospital, he looked so radiant. So that's okay. Why is he looking so radiant for? He's passed away. For he's supposed to be grey and
exactly,
stuff. I couldn't work out that ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਮਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ that it was actually the lali of that. And just a month before that, one of our close friends who you probably even played football with, actually, his name is Kuljit Singh, and he passed away, and he was only about 21 years old or something.
Because he was related to Gersh, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So I remember being there. He passed away, and like I said, he was 21 years old when that has happened. And obviously at his funeral, I was there at the time. Bob recently Ratwari turned up.
That's right.
Biddy turned up.
Yeah.
And that was the first Diwan I had recorded. And Manjot was in my arms at the time. She was just born, so that's 2004. So we're talking mid 2004.
Yeah.
And I can remember the Prasang, because the Prasang I wrote that they given that at Bali's funeral, the Prasang that Sanjeev were doing at the time was about Sikandar. He got told by the George Shees. I know I'm going off track and it's your talk, but George Shees basically said, "Tell me about my time of death." And they said, "Your time of death will be when beneath you the land is metal and above you the land is gold." And that's what I said. And basically what happened was he was injured in battle. They placed him on the metal shields, and above his head they put his gold shield, and he knew his death was coming, and he said, "I'll give anything for the life breaths." And I just remember that at Belize. And it changed for all of us then. I remember things changed.
I think that funeral was crazy because I remember actually going to wash his body. And for me that was the first experience of seeing obviously a dead person. But it was incredible because he was like a young person, and without being offensive to the family or anything, or policing and stuff, but just in a gurmat way I'm thinking about it, but there was no radiance there. And I ended up comparing both the funerals in my own reflection, because just months after that Nana passed away, and I was like, okay, and I was washing their sareer as well, and the effect on the funerals, people mourning, crying.
I remember, because you're saying your granddad's, because I remember, this is bringing up memories. I remember this conversation with you when you're like, at your nana's, it was just, there's Naam Simran, there's Jap, and then you get that Josh was coming in, everybody at the same time.
It was crazy. It was a thing because Danna said to us, he said, "Khabardar ji saade baat koi roya," because no one's gonna cry. And for that, I was like, "What? Like, you're not allowed to cry? You know, what's that about?" But he was actually talking from a Gurmat point of view.
Exactly.
I remember then after that, after Nana passed away, I didn't talk to anyone. 9 months. It was like almost being born again. But I just remember doing. Obviously trying to get over the sorrow first, but suddenly Reras came back. That was the first thing that came back, doing Reras and Nithanem on a regular, then Kirtan Soila, and then Japji Sahib, and then before I knew it, I was going twice a day Gurdwara to see Maharaj. And the crazy thing was, it felt like such a personal experience, because it was almost like Maharaj was guiding me in the journey of getting out this sorrow, but at the same time, he was, it was kind of, the dada was growing, it was almost internalizing then externalizing, and like it was crazy because Sanjanam and Harjas Gayo, for example, would be playing as the Shabd was coming in. Hamri Ganatana Ganiya would be the Hukumnama, the Shabds that my brother would, all those things that Dad had taught us was suddenly the support of us in that time when I needed it the most. And like I remember sitting in a room kind of like just with grants. I read so many grants in that time. I can't explain all. There was not much English literature about Sikhi, so we were reading stuff like Moorcliffe and
Moorcliffe or Cunningham, a couple of things.
Pushmant Singh's book on the history of the Sikhs, massive books, and I was like, but actually, I would find, because it was like that kind of Renaissance kind of period for me, like in Sikhi, where I was doing my Nithanem again, I was going Sangat again, but I was getting close to Maharaj, because Maharaj is the one who's guiding me and telling me, okay, I'm here for you, forget everyone else, no one else exists. And I got to the point where that's when, just before Bali passed away, we met. The first Mahapurush I met was Mratwada Sahib, the Mahapurush, Baba Ram Singh Ji. And I remember his words to me. The last time I met him, he said, "Naam Chittawe." And that was the last word, just outside Guru Tegh Bahadur Gurdwara Sahib. I went running to him because I'd met him before at Gersh's house. And we went and I went running to him, and he came out the car and he stood up and he goes, "Naam Chittawe." And then he put his hand on my head, and I remember, and that was the last time I saw him because he passed away after that. And then after that, by Kuljit Singh Ji, Mahapurush came, and then they were there at the funeral, and then so Mahapurush were sort of slowly entering the kind of space that we are occupying. And then I think when I was that kind of period of time where just thinking about Sikhi, I remember tears come on my mind. I remember literally we had a wall beard trimmer kind of thing, and like I just threw it away. I said, "Look, I'm not going to do this bap anymore. I can't do this," because the blame inside Tata Mardazi, it was like overflowing. And then I remember coming to the conclusion that Maharaj, I feel strong enough to walk on this path. I want Amrit. That's the only thing I was asking for. And then I think in year 2000, Maharaj di Kirpa Naal, in Guru Nanak Gurpurb it was, Guru Nanak Gurdwara. I took Amrit, and I remember the pastor. Remember the Panch Pyare who were there. One of them was Bhai Joginder Singh, who's from Leicester, Anandpur Sahib. One of them was Bhai Seva Singh, Guru Nanak Gurdwara. And when we were taking Amrit, I was standing at the line, after they do the Chula, they prepared the Amrit, and I was so thirsty. I was the last person in the line when they come and give the remaining Amrit. That's dear Dulewa. And they were trying to pull the bata away from me. I literally remember they were pulling the bata away from me because I was just drinking it all. And I remember all the iron bit, all the kind of sarvlo bit, the scratchings at the bottom in it because of the khanda. Sara went in, and I felt so nihal. I was like, I'm going to do like a jakara at that time. I know there's a video somewhere lying around of it, that Amrit Sanchar, the Punjabi roots guy, that Singh, he recorded it. He recorded the Amrit Sanchar, and like in 2000, I took Amrit, and that was amazing because Dad was in India at that time. And I remember as a kid watching these Punjabi movies where a soldier goes off somewhere and then everyone thinks he's dead, and like he suddenly appears after many years and he's still alive. He's got a broken leg or something, and he comes back. I remember that feeling of going back home because I hadn't told Mum that I was going to take Amrit. literally the day before I got the kakar, and with Dad being in India as well at that time, I just felt that, you know what, Maharaj ne said dena hi dena jo marji ho jaye. We took Amrit, and I remember coming home in the evening, and obviously the shit day was still on my face, and when I knocked on the door, Mum had realised where I'd been, and she just opened the door, and she just like that. My mum's got the loudest jagara like ever. She let out this kind of like, you know, like really deep rooted jagara, you know, the ones that kind of like shake foundation in the street, and like massive jagara. And I remember she hugged me, she goes, "Aaj mera putra mud ke aa gaya." That's what her words were, and I felt all the stress that I'd caused them for university and all the galan that she'd probably had to hear from Dad. Her dad used to say, "Tu begade, I've got nothing." You know, like
you let him do, you allowed him to. You let him go to university outside of Leicester. You hear those things, don't you? You hear them.
But I think that just made, and then she was overjoyed, and then she put the phone. We rang Dad. And the funny thing, Dad's been Dad, when I told him, he went quiet, then he goes, "Did you tell her?" And I said, "You should have waited."
I had the same. One was, you're going to go to uni, you're going to go to college. It doesn't. You know, you should have waited.
The amazing thing was,
but you don't, do you?
So grateful.
Yeah.
And Maharaj ne saab kuch dikhalta. Then what happened was, where did the Prachar thing come back? Because obviously he was doing Nityanem and everything. And I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to Gurudwara every day. There's no Najwan here. There's no kids. Where is everyone? Like, kitte baithi. Obviously, now and then I would see you and I think, you know, Cam gets it. You know, I used to think that you Cam
I was out in Bangers.
It, you know?
I was out in clubs.
You know, but because you had that grounding, you know. And then, like, and then now and then I'd get phone calls from my friends saying, "Come out," and I was like, "No, I don't want to. I can't. I don't want to." And they didn't get it. They wouldn't understand it. So I didn't want to preach, like, think, hey, you know, this guy's turned into Gyani now. But internally, I know how much Maharaj had repaired me at such a young age. I remember, you know, like, reading books about Santatar Singh Mastawana and how they'd spend 6 months doing job and stuff, tapasya, and I was like, I would go into the room, come and shut the door, get a jot on, and say to Mum and Dad, door nikolni, and I'd come out at night, you know, like after sleeping. No, I'd come out at night, and like Mum and Dad would be sitting there, then ki ho gaya, like, what's happened to you?
Then they get more in deal way, don't they?
Yeah, then they start thinking, tera biyah bhi karna hai. And I was like, main nahi biyah karana. I was like, main nahi karna. I just want, Maharaj is everything for me. Naam mainu sab kuch mil jaye. But you know what, Cam? I experienced so many things in that time. I don't even want to put down, because people think man wali gal, hankar wali gal. But at that time, what Maharaj showed me and how they guided me out of that situation, there was nothing apart from me sacrificing my head for Maharaj. Ke main thada hai Maharaj. Is sareer bhi thada as the baad. And then even my career at that time, because I was working as an immigration lawyer by that time. I went to work. I was working at Jasfit Jutlers on London Road, and there was a Hindu kudi there. What happened was that the solicitor had sent us on training, and the training was in, I think there's a free Masons Hall
on London Road.
So we went to training there, and there was a Gujaratan kudi there called Dreshma, and she was sitting in the training next to us, and Mera man was just focused on Maharaj. All I could think was, I've just taken it on Amrit, what am I doing? This doesn't feel right. I don't want to be a lawyer kind of thing. I just want to do Seva for the rest of my life kind of thing. The training was going on, and I had a pad of paper, and I was just writing Vaheguru.
That's what, that's what happens in meetings.
Lines and lines of Vaheguru. And then Dreshma looked at the pad, and she goes to me, she goes, we had a break, and in the break she goes, "Can I ask you something?" And I said, she goes, "You don't want to be here, do you?" And I said, "No, I don't." And she goes, "Can I ask you something, because I feel that I can talk to you about it." And then she started telling me about Sukhmani Sahib, how she does Sukhmani Sahib and stuff, and like she's like she has all these visions and stuff like that. And I was like, what's going on? Like, we're talking about Sikhi, and we're talking about, she's from the Hindu faith as well. In the end, Maharaj Kerapana, she married a Sikh person, but she goes to me, her dad's got cancer, and she goes, I've heard that there's this Bani called Sukhmani Sahib. Can you tell me about it? And I said, yeah, I go definitely. The Sukhmani Sahib cures everything. And she goes, well, where can I get it from? And I said, don't worry. We've got the meet in Kudrati. Where the training was like over a weekend. So Friday, it was a Thursday, Friday, then a Monday, Tuesday. So I said, on Monday, when I come back, I'll get your Gurkha Sahib from the Gurdwara. So I remember, I said, look, there's no guarantees that it'll cure your dad's cancer or anything like that. But it's our bhavna, innit? Maharaj do it. She goes, well, do I have to read it all? I said, well, you can just read one part of it. Like, the Ashtapadi is 24 parts, just read one at a time. But in our futurity of our mind, we thought, Maharaj, they put us hona chahiye. Anyway, I bought the Gurkha Sahib and I gave it to her the next time. Not obviously, just met her 2 days before. And then I remember going to the, just after the training, I'd made my mind up. Straight after the training, I went in to Jasvi Jutlas and I said, I'm not coming back tomorrow. And he just looked at me and goes, what do you mean not coming back tomorrow? I said, I'm resigning. And he goes, what? He goes, after the training, we just trained you over it.
After 1,000 training courses.
And then he goes, luckily it was a free one. But like, I go, look, this isn't me. I go, that's not what I want. I've got some other calling in life. I know it's there, but I've got some other calling. And he goes, that's fine. He goes, not a problem. And then he goes, just put it in writing. And I remember in those days we had fax machines, and I sent a fax to him talking about how I came into Sikhi. I thought I'd owe them explanation at least. I said, look, I'm not interested in the rat race. All I want is sense of contentment and knowing that I'm transforming individuals. I want that in life. And I sent it. I sent it as a fax to the Jasper Jutlas. I don't know what happened to that fax afterwards, but I found out afterwards. So anyway, after a few weeks, I'd obviously given my number to the dressman. I was at home and I wasn't working anymore. I was just going Gurdwara twice a day. Amrit do like evening divans. And then during the day, just doing what I could, Sikhi wise, whatever. No? Reading a bit more, doing more research and stuff. Doing Simran, Bani, whatever. And I remember taking the Vaja out and I was singing the Shabd, Mere Har Pritam Ki Koi Baat Sunave So Pai Se Mera Beer. And like, suddenly the phone rings and it's Dreshma. And I stopped the Shabd and answered the phone call, and she goes, Kuljit Baji, she goes, you're not going to believe what's happened. And I go, what? She goes, the doctors have just sent a letter, the consultant, and said that suddenly the cancer's gone in her dad. And I was like, what? The cancer's gone? She goes, yeah. And then she goes, I've been doing the Sukhmani Sahib like you said, and I feel that Maharaj has done it. And I was like, I couldn't believe it, but I just put the phone, I couldn't even answer back. I put the phone down. It was so emotional. I was thinking, Tanya, Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj. How they work is so amazing. And that these kind of things were happening on a like almost regular basis. Like I was getting affirmation after affirmation after affirmation. And I felt Maharaj was calling me closer and closer to some sort of seva. And then that seva manifested then, I think in towards the end, around March time, around Vaisakhi time, we had a friend called Chan from Walsall. He was studying in Leicester University, and I was going from the Gurdwara taking Vajje Tolki to Sikh societies, and we were doing Kirtan in the actual universities for the Sikh societies. And then he called me, he goes, let's do Kirtan at home and we'll order a pizza afterwards. I said, that's fine, don't worry. And when we got to the house, he'd got a friend of his, it was like a Hindu lad, who was also into this kind of spiritual vibe, but he'd come and he'd come to the house and he did Kirtan with us. He was playing the Kartala. And Cham himself was a really nice guy. He was always listening to Sukhmani Sahib in his gun in university. The batteries would run out, he'd get out of his lecture and recharge his batteries using that kind of thought sense. What Pyar Wala Singh Si. And apni kudarti mail hoya that time. And then when we ordered the pizza, he'd ordered a meat one and a veggie one. Obviously we'd just taken Amrit just a few months back, so I was on a high and I'm like, and he put as we were talking, he put the pizzas out, but unu cheta nahi reha what slice was which. Te mainu bhi nahi pata si, when I put the slice in my mouth, it was obviously meat. Te mainu pata lag gaya taste to, and I said, this is the meat one. And then we looked, and he goes, oh my god, he goes, I'm so sorry Kuli, he goes, like, made a mistake. I go, John Koi na. But what had happened, that moment that I put that pizza in my mouth, in my mind I thought, I need to go back Pesh. Straight away in my mind, I need to go back Pesh. So what happened is in March, in the Vaisakhi, I went back to the Panj Pyare, and it was at Guru Tegh Bahadur Gurdwara, and I remember Gyani Son Singh from Taksal,
Taksal, yeah.
and Gani Deep Singh. There was by Baldeep Singh, Sukraj Singh. There's a few Singhs that we all know. I think Sukraj Singh probably not, but Baldeep Singh was definitely there from Smethi. And then I told them what happened, and they said, "Koi galti na shak ho gaya," and I said, "Pata nahi lag gaya na, like it was sute se di hoya." And then I started crying because I thought I've let Maharaj down. Ke just huni tha main, gal hui that like now I'm come back again, and what kind of gur se kama hai. Main ron la paya, and then one of the Singhs, I know which one it is, but just turned around and said, "Ro na, prachar karo." And I was like, what? Like in my mind, I was like, it was like something
somebody
that,
giving you guidance, telling you where you're going.
it was almost as if Maharaj, this is Guru Gobind Singh.
Guru Gobind Singh,
and Maharaj themselves were saying to me that this is what your seva is.
Yeah.
And that's it. Then for me, after a day or two of reflection on it, that's when I thought, you know what, main kuch kar raha hun. I did what they told me to do in terms of tankha.
Yeah.
And then the first thought I had was, right, let's do something for the Naujawan. And then I went home and I wrote this document called Harnessing the Sikh Youth, and it's in English, and I think it's available somewhere on the internet. But like it was in English, and it was just like about 20 pages of how we can get more Naujawan back into Sikhi.
Yeah.
And one of the recommendations, because Sikh to the Mak had just come out then, one of the recommendations with every Gurdwara, just have a projector and a screen and stuff. And then I wrote it and everything, and then after a few days I gave it to Gable Singh, who is Gil Singh Tool, who is Jaspreet Benji's dad, Jaspreet Benji's father-in-law, and Sangha uncle, Minder Singh Sangha, and they read it. And when they read it, they were like, they called me in, and they go, Kuljit Singh, he goes, what you've written here, why don't you just work for the Gurdwara and do it?
Yeah, I remember you upstairs on third floor. Yeah.
And why don't you just put it into practice? And I said, really? Like, you're going to give me the opportunity? And they said, yeah, do it. And like, I was so overjoyed. Then Maharaj Kirpana, we got funding, we got a projector put in, and then that just changed my life completely, because I remember this is where the kind of Gyan aspect and the Itihas kind of love came back, because initially when I got the Sikhi Tumat software, I put it on and I thought we'll just sit, because you needed someone to operate it. So I put the projector on the floor, put the screen, it was a massive screen on the side of the stage, and like the fact that Kirtan happened and everyone's like, this is brilliant because we can sing along with it. And then the Gatha Vachik came on, and I remember him, his name is Bhai Hazara Singh. He was like a proper Buzurg, Taksali, kind of like the old student type, kind of Vidyarthis of Taksal. And he was like a really brilliant Gatha Vachik. And he came and he reminded me so much of my Nana as well, the way his character was. But he goes, "Main tenu kuch likh ke dena aaya." He goes, "Tu mere kolo aaji." And he wrote out the Guru Nanak Pad Pankaj Bandhan. And he made me write that out. He goes, "Inu print kara ke, give it out to all the Sangat." And he goes, "We can then read." I go, "Bahut vadiya, te main computer te bhi la dena." And then we went and we gave out the sheets to everyone, so everyone's in the Sangat got these hymn sheets, whether it's Guru Nanak, Pada Pankaj Bandhan, they're singing it before the Katha starts, and it was amazing because it had an effect. Everyone could read along with it. And then I put it up on the projector as well, because if anyone didn't have the sheet. And then when he started Katha, I was just thinking in my mind, words are on, like, can I do this? Shall I actually try to translate what he says? He started the Gatha, and I just thought, well, let me put the big font on, and I just started typing. But Maharaj ne aisi kirpa kiti that I managed to keep up with what he was saying. And what was happening was basically I was doing a direct translation as we were going along for the Gatha. And I remember the Gatha was about Guru Amar Das Ji Maharaj, Goindwal Sahib. And from Guru Goindwal Sahib's Gatha to Sheme Badshah's Itihas, takriban must have been a period of at least a year. Guru Sahib di Kirpa now, we got all that Itihas written down on the Word, on that laptop, which Kudrati someone came and nicked, as they do. We took that stuff and I was like, oh my god.
Because we had, you remember, we started the recordings of the Gatha at Gurdwara Gurdwara.
Yeah.
We were doing it on the little DVD discs. Someone nicked the video camera. So you couldn't format any of the discs, so all the discs were just
Those days were crazy. And then I remember Marane Seva, and I remember going through every ras, of the Katha, when they used to say no rasa Katha. I remember every Ras listening to the Katha in like their house, like B Ras, remember Chakari and the Jamtines, Shahadas and stuff, and it was like, it was such an amazing experience. But the amazing thing was, there was a Pachangi sitting next to me at every divan. There would be a kid sitting next to me, you know, like there'll be a Najran sitting back, and they were looking at the screen, and then so many people used to come up after every divan and say, Baji, what you're doing now is such a good seva, like carry on doing it. And I was like, wow, I'm getting like encouraged. This is Maharaj wants this seva. So it was an amazing kind of period of time in my life, and I saw, you know how when we say Guru Granth Sahib Ji is the Guru of the whole world, and literally, because you were 9, I was like in the Gurdwara 24/7. I wouldn't go home and stay in the Gurdwara all day. It's like almost seeing it, you know, like people doing Ardasan, Somalians, Spanish people, even random people would come up to me and say, I've got darshan of Guru Nanak Dev Ji and they've got a message for you. They would come up and say stuff like that to me. I was like, what? Like, is this really happening? You know, like, it's crazy. And like, I saw so much that time, I learned so much about the greatness of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. When you live with Maharaj, you realise who Maharaj really are. And then one fantastic day, I heard it was a Buzurgan Diwan, and I heard that Nandini Praksad and Mahapur Baba Thakur Singh Ji have come, and they're going to be coming in that Diwan. And I remember that first meeting, because I thought, okay, let me go in the Diwan before they're there. And when I walked into the Diwan, there was no one on Jar Sahib, and I thought, yeah, it's brilliant. And just before I was about to go to Jar Sahib, there was a Gyani called Baba Gyani Balvinder Singh.
Balvinder Singh, he's gone now.
Yeah, he's gone back to India now. He took the Char Sahib, and I was like, oh, then scammed me. And I mathated it again, then obviously he must have like thought, you know, chalo. And then I didn't think much of it. So I sat towards the front. I used to always sit near the front, near the stage. And I remember very clearly that Babaji, we heard there's a commotion going on downstairs, that Mahapur's aage, you know, because in those days, like, the whole Sangat would just go downstairs and just wait for the minute.
Yeah,
so I
was number one doing that. I was the first one there.
So I thought, you know what, perfect opportunity. I went to the Gurda, Granthi Singh, go, please, Char Sahib de deo. And he was, so I stood in Char Sahib, and I remember the vision of Babaji coming in, and it was such an impressional feeling, because all the Singhs, you know, Bani Parnawali, they all came in round the corner. It was like, oh wow, it's like almost like that scene of Sanjay Nelson coming in.
Because you had like Kabir Ji, Gyani Satyanam Singh, they were all with him.
Yeah, all of them, and Baigashan Singh, they were all looking at me, and I was doing Char Sahib, and I was like, oh my god, like this is next level. And then the Mathated, and as they came round, they come up to me, they go, Pajang, yeah, and like they were like that. And I gave him the Char Sahib, and I was like, oh my god. And then Babaji did Char Sahib, and then I went and sat in the Sangat, and I was like, if they are true Brahmgyani Mahapurush, right, in my mind, because you have that question, if they like a Puram Brahmgyani Mahapurush, right, they're going to give the Char Sahib back to me, no one else back to me, they'll give back. And like, being now realise how stupid that sounds in the company of Mahapurush.
No, because we've been there. We've all, you have to have that doubt. You can't have blind faith.
Yeah. So what happened was, after about 10-15 minutes, they did a shout out to Gyani Balvinder Singh. Yeah. And I said, oh, they're not. You know, in my mind, I thought, they're not. And then they called him over, and I was watching them, and then Gyani Balvinder Singh looked up and looked towards me. Like, you know, I looked to the side, he goes like that, called me over. I was like, what? And then I went over, and Gyani Ji goes, Baba, you can do Pajangi Nubalav.
Yeah, why?
And then they gave me the Char Sahib. When they gave the Char Sahib, I can't explain the feeling I had in my heart. I was close to like a crescendo of tears.
Yeah,
and euphoria.
Just breaking in.
Yeah, it was like that kind of feeling. Then, you know what, I just thought, these guys are something else. And then they Mathatek and sat and they listened to Kirtan. And then afterwards, you know what, I kept thinking, I remember the Hukamnama was Jako Harlang Lago is because after Bazur Diman, Dardas. So okay, and then there was something about Janki Tur, about the Turi of a Mahapurush, like grab it. And I thought, you know what? I did the Char Sahib, finished it. Mahapurush went outside, you know, just outside where the Hukamnama is, the gallery bit of the stairs. They were all standing there with all the committee members and stuff. I went downstairs and I thought, where's Babaji's shoes? Then we found Babaji's shoes, isn't it? So there was one Jordan near the stairs, just near the stairs, and I thought, this has got to be it. And I grabbed it before anyone looked. I took as much story as I put it on my mata, my dada, my eyes, everything. And then I stood at the back, you know, in the glazed doors. And Babaji and the Singhs coming down, there was Nishan Singh, I remember very clearly, one of the Singhs, Nishan Singh, he was reciting Jab Sahib to them, because they used to have, or sing, always reciting Bani, wherever they were. And like, they were reciting Jab Sahib next to him, and they put their Jordan. I was so happy when they put that Jordan on. I was like, I hope it's not just some random Jordan that I've just picked up. But they put that Jordan on, I was like, wicked. And then, as they came out the door, they said Fatah Navin. As they came out the door, they turned to me and they said, Changiya. They go, Jode no hath laisi, hath suche garli. And I was like,
then you're under the glass.
And I was like, oh my God. And then, but as you're so stupid and gafil and I'm murukana, I still can't question it. Yeah, what happened? I still thought, oh, what is this really happening? So what I went, after they went out, they went to Kuljit Singh Cheru's house after that. And I remember,
because I met you then.
Yeah.
You said Copeland Road, do you want to come? And I was like, jump in the car, get in the car.
Yeah. And then I went upstairs and I remember I did a beinti in front of Maharaj. I did Ardas. I said, Maharaj, what's the score? Is this really happening? Like, what should I do? What's my calling? And what do I need to do? Are they really Mahapurush? Are they really the real deal? Like, is this just happening? Is it true? And I remember the hukamnama that I got. Did Ardas myself, took a hukamnama myself, and Maharaj's hukamnama was Jay Vad Bhag Hove Vad Mere Jan Milde Till Na Lai. Which means that if I've got the greatest good fortune ever, then don't hesitate to meet the humble servant of the Lord. I was like, oh my God, that's it. And then after that, that's when I got reinstalled with Sanjana Milhardas Gayo. You know, that meaning of that made sense, that actually this is my manorat. I'm going to meet the saints. And obviously I'd met Baba Ram Singh before that, but this was something more deeper.
You have an experience with somebody that
yeah. So when I went to Mar, you were with us on that day, I remember, and then afterwards I went again the second time, and then another time in Leicester after that, and that night Babaji made us do Chaupa Sahib all night, and I remember from 7 p.m. to about 3 a.m. we carried on in Chaupa Sahib.
You were two of the Singhs then?
Yeah. One was Tinder Singh, and one was Raja Kang from the GTP brother, and 3 of us, and like I remember Babaji taught me so much in that short period of time. It was an amazing experience. I can't put to words, but let's just say everything about Satgad, about how Mahapurush's life is, and what my manorat is, like Chaupa Sahibs and stuff like that. So mera manchit chasi tale misna Chaupa Sahib, because that's the only thing I knew properly. And I was so stupid thinking that at that time, because I thought meri shodya bani, you know, like, because I didn't have no concept of that. It was just pure prem. It was just like thinking that I want to snadam bani. I just had this itcha. And obviously they were the ones in charge of it. And I remember the Singhs, who were the normal Gareys, they just took a step back, and we were there all night. And I remember at one point Babaji was on a mattress, and we were starving because 7 baje to lage hoye, 10 baje we hadn't eaten. And I remember Babaji asked for a thal to be brought in from one of the Seva that just popped in at the right time, and they bought a dal prasada thal, and Babaji, us 3 of us were sitting on chairs higher than them. And like Babaji took one burki, kept looking at us 3, and then kept rolling it around, and then he put it in his own mouth, and it felt like as if we were being fed. And I was like, what's going on here? And then like book of Mitagi. Then later on that night, then Babaji got up to go to the toilet. I helped him with that, and it was just so surreal that we were getting this kind of hands-on seva with no one, but
the opportunity that
and
wish and desire, but then never get.
And then one amazing thing happened, Cameron. I'll never forget it. I don't know why Maharaj even thought that I was capable. My Sarir was even capable of doing that. But I remember one bit where they came out of the toilet and they sat on a chair next to the central eating on the wall, and then they said Vedanal, and I sat next to them, and then they just put their head on my shoulder, and I was like, this is Baba Thagsani, Puram Bramgyani Mahapurush, and their heads resting on my shoulder, and I was like, what's, you know, I couldn't get over the prem that they were giving back to us. And like the Chaupa Sahib continued with 3 vajge, and then Babaji ko chalo hun so hun jao, sari raat hogi jao tusi, and they sent us back. And then in the morning we start getting phone calls from all the Singhs and saying that Babaji was saying ke wo Singh Raat wale Singh kinne bani pad ke gaye. So they're the ones who did everything. Aapa to kuch kita nahi hai, like they were the ones. And then every time I would go, another time we got a chance in Nottingham, Snardham, Chaupi Sahib, Kabir, they were doing Sanskriti slok, they were snaying that bani to them. And then they stopped that and they go Pajangi nu go bani shanave. So I came and I sat next to Bobby lying down Nottingham, and then I thought it was going to be another marathon, but they I did one job inside. It was quite funny what they said. They got up and they went and sat next to the heater. There was a big fire there in front of the house, and then they go, "Aur kuch nahi honda?" Like, he goes, "Aur kuch nahi honda?" And then I go, "Maharaj," he goes, "Japji Sahib honda?" And I go, "Japji Sahib sna de." Then I sna them Japji Sahib, and they got really happy. And then they go, "Katha la de." And then I stayed, and then they put on Sandhya Bachchan's Katha. But what they were actually doing, I felt, well, they were giving me Sayd, which I never forget now. Like, I still, even to this day, after that, I do a Japji Sahib after. Still after that, just like I felt it was their guidance. And I confirmed afterwards with the Singh, Nishan Singh picked him up once from Bag Singh's house and took him to London and explained what happened. He goes, "You know what, oh Japji Sahib kade bhulli na." That is their say to you. Ode ch sab kuch hi mil jana hai. And like then obviously the Katha, and we got hold of the Katha after the Barsi. It was like they were saying things in stone for us later on for the future, so that Babaji's experience was amazing. And then obviously they then passed on, and I felt a sense of like regret. Me and Sabine, both of us felt regret. We couldn't. We actually tried to invite. We went to see them, invite them to our wedding. After that, they sent the Singhs. They sent Maya as well, Pyar Vajo, and then they didn't themselves come to the wedding. And then because Sareer karke, they were so they were out there Sareer at that time. And then what? It was just a magical kind of time, and then obviously we had the children. They kept, even after they left Cam, like we kept getting darshan of them, like like now and then, just their presence was felt regularly. And like even when Harsuk was born, when Sundar was born, even when Jeevan was born, their presence has always been there. Like in some way, shape or form, like somebody will bring something that belongs to Babaji. When Jeevan was born, for example, Ed, whose house Babaji stayed at quite a lot in Warsaw, they bought a dahlia belonged to Baba Tag Singh Ji, and first vastu that she was wrapped in was Babaji's dahlia, and like out of respect, because we felt that they'd sent it. So Mahapurs, I think, for us were massive kind of, and alongside that we were also getting a lot of acknowledgement in nationwide, because obviously we were involved with the Sikh camp, Seva, Boss camp first. And then then when the Seek to Inspire was founded, we were at that meeting in West Midlands, and then Guru Sahib di Kirpa Naal, the Seek to Inspire Prachar took off, and that was a big turning point for us, because obviously now we're not only doing Prachar in Leicester, but also so in 2002 we started something called Chatha 2002, which was like a Saturday kind of midday kind of day. I think parents would just drop off their kids for shopping whilst they were shopping on it, but there was about 10-15 little kids would come, and like we'd do Simran first in the Gurdwara, and then we'll do the Hukamnama, and then I'd take the kids upstairs and explain the Hukamnama in English to them. And that was it was just from Guru Akchan, and would use Babaji Singh Ji's Granth, and like just go through the Sakya of that, and that brought up kind of like this kind of yearning to do Katha and stuff. And then Holly at that period of time was also doing talks in universities, and also doing the screen Seva. It was such a magical period.
We did Friday nights.
Then Friday night started.
That was a big thing for me.
Yeah. Friday nights was a big thing.
That's where you saw people, end of the week. That was the time that the kids between the ages of 8 to 16, 17 were all come to Gurdwara. I remember you starting that.
And that was Simran fir shuru kita. Then in the Simran after that, the Katha of the Hukamnama, and that's where for me the Katha kind of took off in front of Maharaj's Huzuri, because we were doing loads of talks anyway across unis and stuff. So Maharaj is blessing a lot of Seva at that time in terms of Prachar, and then obviously I found a bit more strength with Sarveen coming on board as well. We got married in 2004, Then we started I don't know if the footsteps to Guruji camps. We had like a camp in every single Gurdwara in Leicester, and that's where I met Kamalpreet's sister. Kamalpreet Singh was also involved in them, and then those kind of camps. Our aim was just to get one camp in each Gurukar in the whole of Leicester. So we went to every Gurdwara and did a camp there. It was an amazing. Maharaj we built a team of Sevadars. Amongst them were people like Rands, Mandeep Singh. We had Mandeep Singh Kella. We had Karandeep Singh Kanni, and like there's quite a few Gursikhs at that time who were in helping out. Baljit Kaur, his sister, Abji's cousin sister, Prabpreet, and then Bali Lail, Baljinder Kaur Lail, a few more younger Sevadars came on board afterwards. There were the footprints camps were like, for us, were like crazy because we were getting like nearly, and it was the first time in Leicester something like that was kind of on a big scale after Khalsa camps, the original Khalsa camps the Federation used to do in Soul Valley School and stuff. It was a big thing, you know, from and a different kind of angle because we were talking in English and doing the prachar in English more, and then on a national level we were feeding into the Seek to Inspire camps. So it was like a massive kind of for me it was like a renaissance period for myself in terms of prachar and Sikhi prachar. I'd actually built that kind of relationship with Maharaj, and I remember making CDs called the Wake Up Call for Nagar Kirtan. You know, we had like a little talk recording on CD somewhere, and that went out to Sangta. We did so much in such a short period of time. Within the period of about 2-3 years, Maharaj Kirpana, we covered all those Gurdwara and we built this kind of legacy. And then Friday night started because we felt we needed something regular where the kids can come as well. And then after that, and then it was actually in those Friday night camps I was actually working as a learning mentor in Leicester College, and we'd set something up called LeicesterSikhs.com. And I think Randeep Singh used to run it, the back end of it with Mandeep Singh, and I remember very clearly that an email came through, and the email was from Dr. Karandeep Singh, and he had a photo of himself with just Nico Benji. And it said like a very simple email: I'm coming to Loughborough to do a PhD, and I'm from Delhi, and we would just needed some assistance, if an accommodation, if you can help with that. An email came through, and I remember Rand messaging me saying there's this Gursikh who's contacted. Do you want to? Shall we help him out?
Because they got the flat then on Uppingham Road, didn't they?
Yeah. And then obviously it was Loughborough Uni, and Mandeep Singh Kella he works at Rolls Royce in Loughborough. So I asked Mandeep Singh, I said, Mandeep Singh, there's a Singh from India who's looking for help. Do you think we can help him, assist him? And he goes, yeah, let's see what happens. So we invited them, and they came, they already got the visa and stuff. They were coming to do a PhD, and then their link got made with Mandeep Singh, and initially they kept him at, I think, remember Jasdeep Singh? Jasdeep Singh Namza's house. They stayed there initially, and then we got supporting them to get a flat. They started their PhD in maths and stats and stuff in Loughborough. I remember Dr. Babaji Singh coming into the divan, and the first time I met him, because obviously we'd already talked, I hadn't spoken over the email with him. I left that to Mandeep Singh and all that, but I remember 4 or 5 things were standing there, the main kind of Sevadars of Friday nights at that time, and he came over and he said, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Fateh. He said, Fateh Gaj Ke, and then he said, Singho Tiyar Ho Jo, Asi Khanda Kadgona Hai. That was their word, the first words that they said in front of it. And I looked at him and I said, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa. I got really happy. I said, that's such a unique entrance, Singho Tiyar Ho Jo, Khanda Kadgona Hai. But Guru Sahib Di Kirpana, they were getting Amrit Sanchar Seva regularly in the UK from the time they came here. So they, with I think it was Bhai Resham Singh Ji and the Bible Dev Singh Ji, the elder Jatha, they started Amrit Sanchar Seva with them, and then Maharaj Di Kirpana, we also got a chance to do Amrit Sanchar Sevas together. And because
he was in the Punch Piyada with myself when we used to speak G&G.
Yeah. So we that all link je ban gaya, and then pyar bhi vad gaya, obviously, because they started doing seva alongside, went to do camps with us as well, the last few camps, because we took kind of step back obviously because of the kids. We had young kids at that time, and then I think Kamalpreet Singh and them lot were involved in the old Punjabi school.
Yes, Babaji was working there.
Babaji was working there as well, and then that kind of like took off as the next Prachar aspect. That read really well, and then for us, our life kind of dramatically changed because obviously we had more focus on the children, and trying to bring them up, but also doing Seva of Sangata, sings and talks and lectures where we recorded through Sikh to Inspire. It was an amazing experience, and then one experience that I do want to share, like it was that I wouldn't do the Panch Pyare Seva. I wouldn't. I felt that wasn't worthy of it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I felt that was because my Nitanam was Kant except for Job Sahib.
Yeah.
And I had this thought in my mind that I'm not going to do it until I get my Job Sahib Kant.
Yeah, I can understand.
And I remember Gyani Kuljit Singh, who I did Santya with, they turned around to me and said, look, they said, why do you keep saying no? And I said, it's because that I don't feel capable. And they go, Karan ki, Karan daso. Like Gyani ji is quite
he's straightforward.
He's straightforward. And I said, the Karan is I do my Nityanem and everything, but my job side can't be hunda. And they go, did you ever think that the reason why job side don't get count is because you keep saying no?
Yeah, exactly. He's not doing Seva.
And I was like, what? Like, I'd never thought of that.
Yeah.
And then he goes, look, je Punjab Pyaran di nahi karni. He goes, just do Granthi Singh Seva.
Yeah.
Be involved in that way. So I said, chalo 7 bajan. And then Maharaj I got asked at the next one, कि तुसी Granthi di Seva करोगे. And then as Maharaj di Mehr hui, I got that Seva, and I remember literally after that Seva the next day, Job Sahib was gone.
Yeah, wow.
Literally. I couldn't believe it. I was like, inni patakta, like, just by saying 7 bachan, Maharaj hi kirpa kar dinde.
Oh, yeah,
and I'd been nearly 7 years I'd been saying no to that Seva.
Yeah.
So I think what happens is you realise that Seva is the biggest Nityanem.
Of course it is.
And then through that, Maharaj, the Nityanem itself it extrapolates itself.
What that does is the Seva reduces the pride.
Yeah.
Once the pride's eradicated, those doors open.
And that's it.
And that's what it is. Someone has given us like a yin and yang concept for everything. There's Seva and Simran, Sant Sapahi, Bhakti Shakti, everything is that sort of thing. You need the balance.
Yeah.
So I can totally understand that, because I was the same as you. I was like, I'm not doing this.
Right.
Patwari used to say it to me.
Yeah.
And then he goes,
another great soul.
and then he says, when I go, you'll take my place.
Right.
And I remember when he passed away, then they called me and said, he said it, so you're doing it.
Right.
But until then, you go, I'm not doing this.
Right.
One, my tit's too big for a chola, so I'm not wearing that. So I'm not getting in that for a it's just those sorts of things you do want to do, but I understand that. So until that time comes, it comes, isn't it?
I think Seva is an amazing thing, because it takes you out of your comfort zone as well. It pushes you as well.
Yeah.
It does everything in one. It's such a powerful commodity that Maharaj has blessed us.
Yeah.